Hi everyone, ik ben Kita and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have some guests. We are sitting on my couch shooting another episode of our career conversations, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
Hi everybody, my name is Tsholo and I went to UCT and I live in Johannesburg now.
Hello everyone, my name is Minenhle. I went to Wits and I live in Johannesburg as well.
So I've invited some guests to kind of collab with me today to basically provide some additional insights on investment banking. These are some bomb-ass black girls who are in the field as well, and I wanted you guys to hear some views which aren't just my own. And so we're going to kind of get to know our visitors. And the first thing, I guess you guys have answered the introductory questions, which are who you are, where you live, but tell us a bit about what you do. What is your role? How old are you? Where did you study? Or actually, what did you study?
Okay, cool. So I am an investment banking analyst. I'm 24 years old and I studied mechanical engineering at UCT.
And I am an investment banking graduate. I studied at Wits. I did philosophy undergrad, then postgrad.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool, right?
Oh, you studied finance?
No.
Yeah.
So I studied philosophy
Is that a
undergrad.
BA?
Yeah. And then I went
Interesting.
to business school and did postgrad business management.
Oh, that's so good. I actually don't know that. So I thought
Yeah.
she studied finance. I knew that Tsholo did engineering.
Yeah.
And one question I get often is on getting into banking if you don't have a finance background. And so I thought that it would be really helpful to get some people in to share their views on that. And Tsholo is going to be my person for that. But obviously, Minenhle did philosophy. So that's also like really advantageous. I also felt that I provided some perspectives on UCT. Tsholo also went to UCT, but Minenhle went to Wits, and so I thought that she could share a bit about that as well. So it's so interesting that you did philosophy. What made you guys decide to go into banking? Because obviously, if you don't have, I think if you go into a business science degree or BCom, you kind of have an idea that you want to be in the commerce field. But I'm really interested, and I guess people are interested in why you decided to go into banking.
Sure, so I was a part of the Investment Society, which is a really big society at UCT.
Nice.
And we'd very often have all the big international and local banks come visiting the campus, and they would be like, hey, there's this thing called investment banking. And to be honest, in the beginning I had no idea what it was, but what I knew for sure is that everybody wanted to talk to the investment banker when they came to campus. So I decided to do some research into investment banking and what it's all about. Unfortunately, I have a cousin who's also a banker, and he didn't actually know that I was interested in it. And then we started having conversations, and what's really nice about banking is that the networking, people are usually very keen to network and let you know what the industry is about. So I was able to meet one person who introduced me to another person. Found out about what it's about. I went onto all these websites that tell you what you should prepare, what you should know, and I realized very quickly that you don't need a traditional finance or accounting degree.
Yeah.
You just have to put in the work to make it through an interview, and then they'll teach you everything. So that's the hardest part. But once I figured out what a capital structure is, because I was clueless, honestly, I don't know what I spent my varsity career doing, but I had no idea. I was like, yes, there's debt, yes, there's equity, yes, there's all of that stuff, but I didn't know pretty much anything beyond that. So I studied as if I was writing an exam, and then went to the interview and got an offer.
But did you even think that you wanted to do engineering then? Or
I always knew from the beginning that I wasn't going to be an engineer. I think that so most people who become mechanical engineers probably wanted to be pilots or do some really interesting engineering, and in South Africa the scope and the landscape for that is very limited. So we don't have a huge tech landscape, we don't have a huge aeronautics landscape, which is what most mechanical engineers do. So in about second year, after a few engineering internships, I was like, okay, that's not for me. This has been fun, and the spaces are it's quite difficult to fit in, and it's quite difficult. The work is very can be quite physical as well, and I wasn't game for that. I want to wear heels, I want to wear suits, I want to go to work, I want to get my hair done, I want all those superficial stuff that actually make a difference in the workspace.
Yeah.
So it's okay, I'm not going to do engineering. And then I was like, okay, what's next? And then I thought banking, consulting, and then made my way through that.
I think internships are actually really helpful in helping you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's something that I often encourage on the channel because it really gives you exposure to the day-to-day of the job you might get yourself into. So that's really cool. And you, philosophy?
Philosophy. Yeah, so
I mean, it's not surprising now that I've met you.
Yeah, so I mean, I think my story is quite a bit different. So I mean, my last 2 years were focused on academics, philosophy, and sports. And I mean, I think I was really good at time management. And once I decided to leave sports, I had all of this free time. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do with it? So my sister was working at one of the larger consulting firms at the time, and the things she told me were very interesting, and I thought, okay, I'm a student that's studying philosophy. South Africa is very traditional in the sense that if you haven't studied a technical degree, they don't really look at you. So I think my question to myself was, okay, cool, how do I get exposure? So a few people and myself started a student-run consulting firm, and we actually got one of the larger consulting firms to partner up with us. And
nice.
I think we started pitching a lot to corporates and to banks, and the students that joined in, a few of them did internships at really big international banks, as well as really big consulting firms. So I think from a networking perspective, I started to get a lot more exposure. And then through just general chats, speaking to the interns or the people part of the consulting firm that were interning at banks, and I thought, okay, I think my decision now is between investment banking and consulting. So I started reading up a lot. And like Tsholo said, when you don't study finance, or if you haven't studied finance, you study the stuff as though you're studying for an exam. And I thought, okay, this is really interesting. I want to pursue a career. So I interned at an international investment bank, and like you say, you get to see the day-to-day runnings. And I think at the time they were working on an IPO. And I got to read about it on the newspaper, and I thought, oh, flip, this is the way I want to be. So yeah, I mean, that's my story. I won't lie, coming from a non-financial background, in interviews you will get asked, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, why you?
Yeah.
But I think there's just like these small things that make you stand out, because at the end of the day, a lot of students are getting A's and B's. And we're all gunning for the same position. So what makes you different?
What's interesting is that all three of us, I think the decision came down to banking versus consulting, actually. And I think a number of people are in the same place where they're deciding between the two. For myself, the decision between banking or consulting came down to kind of what I found most exciting at the time. And I think what I can say is that when you're in consulting, it seems, or what I felt at the time, is that you work on fewer projects at one time and they're really long dated, whereas banking, you're working on like multiple projects and they're shorter dated. And so I felt that the learning curve was steeper, and that you get lots of exposure than compared to what you can get in management consulting. So management consultants can correct us, but that's what shaped the decision for me. And what shaped it for you between consulting and banking? Was it the internship that you did where you're like...
No, look, I'm not going to lie to you, okay? At the end, I was interviewing both streams, and I got an offer from the one side, and they gave me 3 days, and I thought, I'm taking it.
Okay. Sensible.
It was the same for me, like, got the offer. I think got an offer on Monday, and Wednesday they wanted it signed. So I was like,
really?
Yeah. So, and the consulting firms were only gonna give offers at the end of that month. We were on like second, third round interviews. So it was just like, the economy's bad. Am I really gonna risk it for to work at with a really big player? So I just took the offer. So probably not like the smartest way to be, like pros and cons. There was nothing like that. It was just like
what came first.
Yeah.
How did you guys actually prepare then for your interviews? Because obviously with a corporate finance background, corporate finance courses, you kind of have a foundation.
Yeah.
Did you have resources, or you just going on the internet?
So the nice thing is that there are a lot of resources online.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, I told my father, look, bro, this girl's got to get a job. Can I have some money to purchase a course online? And he was like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I did that. Found some free material online, and it is available.
Yeah.
So like you can go on websites like Wall Street Oasis and Wall Street Prep. There's a lot of material. There is some material like premium material that you need to pay for, but there's others that are completely free. And also if you just like Google investment banking prep questions, there's this book,
like 150.
There's a book with like 150 questions, and the thing is, you can. It's not only about like memorizing it, right? So if you're not sure what the answer is, and you see the answer, then you've got to start like interrogating. Okay, why is this the particular answer? Because when you're interviewing, they don't just want surface level answers. They keep digging deeper and deeper. So I think I worked off of that basis, and then just did some extra research and mock interviews. So through the student run consulting, through the student run consulting firm that I ran, those guys were, I actually really admire every single person that was part of that. I think they've turned out to be great in terms of their careers and just personally, but they were very supportive in the sense that if one person was interviewing, we all got together, mock interviews. We'll stay up with you until like midnight, just doing mock interviews over and over and over. And if a person had previously done an internship at an investment bank, obviously they'd pass down their material and they'd pass down questions, or they'd help you prep, which was really helpful. So I think I was lucky in that sense.
That's so cool. Did you have the same? Like a community?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like the community is so, like people are willing to help, and I think that when we message people on LinkedIn, we get a little bit scared or whatever. But I found that most people that I asked, particularly because my field was male dominated, so all of them wanted to do banking, and they will literally just like send you an email with like 10, 15 links, and then also offered to do mock interviews and stuff like that. So the community aspect helped. I would have never survived by myself because I was clueless. Like I knew nothing about finance. So yeah.
That's amazing. I actually didn't have that. Like
really, and you
mock interviews. No, I don't know if maybe people in the finance space are more competitive because you're all competing for the same.
I actually think that's the
position.
case. Yeah.
Because there weren't mock interviews. My mock interviews was the actual interviews, and like in third year there were some interviews I did which were I flunked, but they really helped me prepare for fourth year when it really mattered. So that would have been cool to have. And what do you guys think really differentiated you? Because I think sure, you can get to an interview, you've prepared well, but to actually get to the interview, what do you think on your CV or your story or your cover letter made them want to interview you?
I think for me it was seeing the different degree. Well, naturally people will be curious. Like they're not sure how you're going to fare in the interview, but they're like, let's just hear this person out. So I think it had to do with that. And then if we're going to be completely honest, like being a black female as well, you tend to be an anomaly in these spaces. So that also differentiates you. I don't think that people were expecting you to be prepared for technicals as well. It's because I remember we had like cue cards and stuff. Like
You guys know each other in university?
No.
An interview.
Yeah, we met in an interview. And we had and everybody's just like so relaxed. So I think that having a diversified degree, but then proving that you can answer technical questions is pretty much will lock it in. Because you're willing to, that shows you're willing to learn. And you're teachable. So
I think for me, I mean, there's certain things that I sort of leveraged in my interviews. So being a former national gymnast, and then I also studied. And then I also obviously studied philosophy, and I think if you have someone that studied a BA and they're coming in for a finance interview, in your head you're thinking this person's got guts because they definitely don't belong here. And I mean, my sisters always said to me, look, fake it until you make it. So you just got to walk in there with confidence, no matter like what you're feeling on the inside, especially if you've prepped prepped for it.
Yeah.
So I think those are two things, and then having started a business, it's good to be an A student, but there's so many A, B students gunning for the same jobs. You can't have those small things that make you stand out, even if it's just doing an internship.
But that's an important point, sorry to interrupt, but like, you don't have to be like Dean's Merit List every year.
Yeah.
But if they can see that in varsity you were like doing the most in terms of extracurricular and giving your time to other things, like that also makes you more interesting.
Yeah.
Which attracts employers,
I think people definitely have different selling points. Like I, for one, didn't do sports. Didn't start a business. Didn't have a unique degree, and so I think for me my selling point was my academics and having done internships, the work experience. And you guys I think were more well-rounded, but my question is, would you say you had good academics still, or were they average?
So my academics were very average, like, because I found my degree quite tough, and it's something that like I'm not willing, I'm not like hesitant to be open about. Like engineering is like the bottom of the barrel. Like there'll be years where you'll get A's and you'll do really well, and there'll be years where you are just praying for a 50 on this course because it's so tough. So all in all I ended up average, and when I was looking at some of the requirements, like they'll say like 75 plus, 80 plus or whatever, I was like, oh, I don't actually have, I mean, there's certain years where I have that, but not every year. And it gave me an incredible amount of anxiety when I applied, because I was so scared that my application would just go through the automation phase and get kicked out, and that people wouldn't give me the benefit of the doubt. But I found that if you are well-rounded and stuff, like the academic question, like sometimes you will get asked, like if you had a bad year, they'll be like, what happened this year? Like, can you give us some color? And it's not to catch you out, it's just to show that you can give a reasonable explanation for, because life happens and everybody that you interview with is human, and they know that. But if you just, go and are inauthentic, then that kind of like, I don't know, that can work against you or even for you if you're a really good actor. But I found that like authenticity and just being like, no, that was a really tough year, and this is what I did. The most important part is like, what did you do to get better? What did you do to make sure that the next year wasn't as bad? Which is what I tried to do in my interviews. But no, I was not like, I was not like cum laude or any of that in varsity.
And you? Were you an A student?
No, actually I was close. So in my undergrad, I think I did pretty well. I think when you like have to, I mean, I only focused on two things. It was sports and academics, and I took them both pretty seriously. But once I got to business school, I think I was like, nah. I'll focus on like the practical, which isn't good, right? Because you can't put more effort in one and not the other. So I think my academics slacked a bit. I didn't fail, but they did slack a bit once I got to business school, and it was just a lot tougher. But it's not like I was just sitting and doing nothing. I was trying to run a business, a very small business, but still a business. But so I think because of that, it sort of balanced off. And if they said, oh, this mark's not looking too good, why? I was like, well, it's making money, bruh. No, I'm joking.
What do you do at business school? Do you do an honours or postgrad diploma?
So it was a postgraduate diploma in business management, but it's an equivalent of honours.
What made you decide to go for that instead of like an honours degree or even just going to another university completely?
At the end of my third year, I'd done an internship at an investment bank, regardless of my philosophy, and I was incredibly set on going into either banking or consulting. And I won't lie, I was very like self-conscious of the fact that I'd studied philosophy, and if I had to do it again, honestly, I still would go study philosophy. I wouldn't change my degree, but I was just conscious of the fact that corporates would look at me or banks would look at me and think, oh, this one, BA philosophy.
What are we gonna do with this?
We've got someone that's done finance, straight A students, toss it out. So I mean, that's what motivated me, because you do get exposure. So you essentially do like 3 years of a BCom just squeezed into a single year. So I had exposure to accounting, to corp fin, and a few other subjects. So I thought that would maybe help me get up the curve a bit quicker.
Tell us about how you decided on the banks that you eventually landed up at. Like,
Yeah.
did you apply to multiple banks, and was it a matter of, you know, those banks saying reply to us by this time, or did you give it more thought before you took the offers?
No, I mean, I think I was just very forward. Like, looking back now, I think, what were you thinking? But obviously I went to business school, and business school gives you these 2 months to find an internship, and you've got to work for the company for the whole 2 months, and at the end hopefully they make an offer, or if not they continuously bring in other companies to recruit, I guess. And I just put myself in front of everyone's face. And then I reached out to absolutely everyone. I mean, I found the CEO of one of the banks, and I messaged him and I said, hello.
On LinkedIn?
Yes, on LinkedIn. Unashamedly, I messaged him and I said, hello sir, how are you? This is who I am. I think I said, I noticed that you didn't study a Corp Fin degree, or I didn't either. And then, I mean, no, it was a completely professional email. He was the chairman of a non-profit that I was working at while studying. So I leveraged off of that. He knew some people that I knew. I leveraged off of that, and I asked him if I could possibly share my CV with him. And like you said, people are willing to engage with you.
Yeah.
But anyways, like I was saying, I was incredibly forward. I messaged and emailed absolutely everyone I could think of, from the HR of the bank to the senior associate. And if the senior associate didn't respond to me, I was like, okay, that's fine. Email your boss.
Find someone else.
Look, it's not always going to work, because you look incredibly cocky. I don't think it was as bad as I'm making it sound, if I'm being honest. I was very humble and polite and respectful throughout the entire process. But I definitely did put myself out there, and through the consulting firm, with the larger consulting firms, I already had access to the recruiters. So it was just a matter of saying I'm actually interested in applying, whereas with the banks I had to sort of stall.
But did you go through like formal processes, or did you get a job through LinkedIn?
No. I did go through the formal processes, and I did get one interview through LinkedIn. But with the other processes, I mean, I think the banks are very, like you say, process driven. So it's like, send your CV and we'll take you through the process. You're not going to be treated any different.
I think the whole process driven thinking is advantageous, because obviously some people's dads know CEOs and know so-and-so, and you might think that they have an advantage when it comes to the interview process, but in reality I think that it's not actually often the case.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
I think that in my year, like, the economy was really, okay, not as bad as it is like now because of COVID, but like a lot of the international banks actually weren't hiring juniors, so it was quite tough. I think there was 2 at the time that were hiring for a grad program, and I just applied to only those 2, and then the rest were consulting companies and a few like engineering companies as well. I didn't like completely write off engineering. And then I literally took the first offer I got.
Where we left off before Tsholo got a work call, and we're gonna get to like chatting about work-life balance, was I think you were talking about, was it CFA?
Yes.
Oh yes.
I think that's where we were. So is it something that you think you might still want to do, or not so much anymore? Because you know what, I also think that like once you get into banking, like you're saying, your hours are really tough, so it's difficult to make time for it, but also you kind of question whether you still need it, because now you're actually in.
Because it's no longer a selling point.
So I have been thinking about that. I think for me, I definitely want to study further. One thing that I know I certainly will do in my life is my MBA, but internationally. So I mean, CFA has been a thing of, do I want to do both CFA and MBA, or do I just want to do MBA? And I think lately I've been thinking maybe I can upskill myself through CFA, but the only thing is finding time to actually study for it, because everyone that I know is freaking out because exams are coming up, and it's like, if I sign up for this, fine, that's okay, but am I going to get through all of the material? And not waste my money? So I don't know. I'm still thinking about it, but I certainly will study further. And also, I think one thing is, will it help me? Maybe I need to speak to more people, but will it help me be better at my job, or is it just like something nice to have?
From someone who did CFA level 1, I think that it's a nice to have, to be honest, because a number of the things that you learn through preparing for the exam, you'll probably learn on the job in any case. And I remember when I did my level 1 exam, I would literally, on the whole time thing, because I was working such late hours at that time, I'd wake up early. Myself and my flatmate were writing it that year. So I think we wake up at like 6, put in 2 hours of studying before the workday starts. And that's how we eventually like got through.
Wild.
Yeah, because you're obviously like already sleeping so late, and then you have to wake up early to study, so it's a bit exhausting if you're trying to balance like really hectic work hours and studying. Currently I'm actually studying for level 2, and I posted this on my stories, and people are like, oh, can you please tell us a bit more about this, like, is it really beneficial? Why are you doing level 2? Is it going to help you? Can you give us study tips, etc.? And it honestly comes down to the fact that I think I like torturing myself, maybe. But to be honest, I like continually learning and working towards something, and that's the main reason why I did it, more than it benefiting me for my job, because I don't think that it's going to benefit me for my current job. Maybe down the line, like when I'm looking for exit opportunities or whatever, it might be helpful to have that CFA level 2 on my CV. Actually, the whole MBA thing is really cool, because that's something I'm also starting to think about. Especially as you see, I think you're seeing South Africans getting into these international MBAs, and you're like, okay. And there's a girl I know who just got into like Harvard for her MBA, and I was like, let's chat, because I have so many questions.
I completely agree. I think I get more excited when I see black females.
You
know, when they post their Instagram thing. I mean, even if they're from Congo or wherever, I'm just like, yes, sister.
I think because that's where you relate to the most, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tsholo and I, if there's like a Stanford conference or MBA Africa student conference,
dial in.
We'll dial in, we'll share links.
Stanford only, or just like all of them?
Just in general.
All around. Because at times you think this is so impossible.
How
am I going to get a scholarship to go study in the US at Harvard? And I won't lie, like I'm pretty set on Ivy League.
It only makes sense if you decide to do it for honest.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you see people that look like you. And I mean, Tsholo, you always say this to me, but representation really matters. And when you see people that look like you achieving all of these things, you think, oh my word, this is possible. Like this is.
Now, let's chat about work-life balance, because that's what we were talking about when we cut our camera waiting for Tsholo to finish her phone call. We know that notoriously banking hours are really, really tough. Actually, on that, what would you say your average hours are?
Average hours,
really, like, the lifestyle out of you.
You're not gonna leave. You're not gonna leave at 5. 9 to 5 does not exist in banking at all. You're gonna work till midnight, after midnight. Like if a client wants something, at the end of the day, you have to deliver. So it just becomes an all hands on deck situation, and you just have to put in the hours. And I think that we all know that the banking hours are crazy. We all know that it's 60, 80 plus. But I think that when you experience it, like you're like, no, I can do that. I can do that. Like for the paycheck, I will do it. But when you start to experience it, you can ask yourself questions about like, I should be exercising. I should be, like there's a whole other aspect. There's a whole other aspect to my life that I might be neglecting. And then that's where the conversation about delayed gratification comes in. Like, are you going to work hard now so that you can be okay later, or do you want to have your 20s? And that's a very individual conversation, and one that everybody needs to decide for themselves. Like, I can't tell you to make certain sacrifices or not. I've chosen to make the sacrifice, and we were talking earlier about having like an end goal. If you have an end goal, it's easier to put in the effort and stuff. So yeah, but work-life balance, there's pockets of life, I guess I can say.
That sounds very sad.
There's pockets of life that you're always on call, and which can it depends on your personality. Some people are okay with that. Some people get incredible anxiety from that.
So what time would you say you usually end? Like
not before midnight. Like if we're gonna be honest, like midnight is like the average time to end. If you're having a really like chilled week in a sense that client deliverables aren't as intense, and you're just expected to do like the work that kind of keeps the firm going. I would say an early night for me is 10 p.m. Not sure, but for me, like if I get off at 10, I'm like, I am living my best life tonight. I'm doing a face mask. Listen, like I am gonna like watch like The Office or something like dumb on Netflix. So yeah, 10 p.m. is my average.
Okay.
Early night, but most nights it's midnight plus.
So I'm in the phase of like trying to figure out if I'm doing this to myself, or if
Me too.
or if
other people are inflicting the pain.
yeah. So I mean, for me, an average night is midnight, which I think is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing is, look, I can finish at 2 o'clock, right? And from the morning till 2 a.m. the next day, I haven't had any time for myself, and I'm incredibly exhausted, and I'll lie in bed. Mind you, I'm so tired, but because I want those 30 minutes of me time, I will watch an episode.
There's actually a
At 2 o'clock.
What
At 2 o'clock.
There's a specific term.
I think
revenge procrastination. It's called
yes.
revenge procrastination.
It's like-
I do it too.
It's like I've suffered for you,
But at 2 o'clock.
for so long. I don't know. There's just something in my brain that says, claim these 30 minutes. They're yours.
Yeah.
Have them.
I do that too.
So I mean, yeah. But sorry, to answer the question, I think an average night is around midnight. There have been days where I've finished a little bit earlier, like around 11. Or I'll leave the office like 10, half 10.
Yeah.
But even then, it's a thing of I'm leaving, and then I'm gonna go open my laptop. And
At home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've had many all-nighters.
Yeah.
Really?
More than a handful, yeah. And you just...
Because
what are you supposed to do?
You can't say no.
You can't say no, and there's like, the client wants what the client wants, and you just do it.
Let me say, I haven't pulled an all-nighter, but I have had like a 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, 6 a.m. evening, and then I'll get maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep and then back in the office, but never like consistently just working through 2 whole days. And I think that the working hours thing also comes with the projects which you're working on at that time, because you can have like some quiet periods where you can go to bed at like 10 or a bit earlier for some people, and then you have really busy periods where you're working really long hours. And then secondly, I think it also comes down to the level which you're at, and this is something we were speaking about when we took a break, which is that I feel that now that I've gotten to associate level and like gained a reputation, a bit more work experience, I can push back on a few more things and manage my time a bit better. And so I'd say like currently my average working hours have been kind of being done around 10, which is her early evening. So yeah, really I think it comes with a bit of experience. Yeah.
That's the part where like knowing why you're in it, like delayed gratification, like are you willing to suffer the first 2 or 3 years, and then in exchange for better work-life balance and better reputation, better pay later. Everybody's just got to decide for themselves.
And weekends, how are your weekends? Like how many, let's say in a month, how many weekends are you working?
So mine's very project specific. So I know we hit the ground running at the beginning of the year, so I didn't have a weekend until, but like when I say I didn't have a weekend, I mean you're working like 9 to 10. Yes, literally you're working the entire day to like late on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Yeah.
And there's no break. So I think I went through that phase until maybe March, April. No, I'm lying.
That's a while.
March, same here.
Yeah, but it was a very hectic transaction. And then lately I think it's a bit easier. Like obviously I haven't touched my laptop today, but I'll do some work tomorrow. So I wouldn't say lately it's been that bad, but in the beginning of the year I wanted to die.
And do your friends understand when you're constantly like, I can't make these plans?
So it's difficult because with friends you've always got to make like tentative plans, like yes we can meet on Saturday but anything can happen. And I think that if your friends are bankers or consultants, like if you cancel like an hour before, they'll totally get it. They'll be like, know how it is. But with other friends it's like a bit of got to massage the situation a bit more and be like, yeah, my job is hectic. Why can't you just say no? I'm like, listen,
that's what everyone.
Why
can't you say
no? I can't.
Yeah. And we were saying that even family will ask you like, why you can't say no. Your parents will be like, there's no need to work such long hours, but you can't make them understand, essentially.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like you said, it's a choice that you made.
Yeah.
You know, so you can't really put it on anybody else. You just it's a choice that you made, and like you said, you can leave at any point if you want and choose another life. But will you be as stimulated? Will your career trajectory be as good,
promising,
as promising?
Yeah.
So you just
how has it impacted your dating life? That's what we are talking about. Do you have a dating life? Do you have time for a dating life? I haven't mentioned this on my channel, but my boyfriend's a banker, so I think that in a sense he understands. We both understand each other's like working hours, so if someone cancels or we can't make a dinner date or whatever, it's just like cool. But how's it for you guys?
Mine is non-existent currently.
I'm not laughing at you.
It's the way you put it, which is funny.
Because you know, you need, like, when you start dating somebody, you need to put in the effort, especially in the beginning when you don't know people. Like, it's only in the later stages of a relationship, like after a couple of months, where you can like screw people over in terms of like cancelling last minute, because then there's like already like a you really like each other, you're vibing, people understand. But in the beginning, like, can you imagine first dates, you're already saying, nah bro, it's not happening. Like what kind of an impression does that make? So mine is non-existent. I don't know about y'all.
I am in a relationship, but the nice thing with me is I met him while I was still studying, when I was in business school.
So he knows you're not doing it on purpose.
Exactly. And it's funny because he was working while I was still at business school, and I'd always be like, why are you so tired? Just let's watch a movie. And he'd be like, no, I'm exhausted.
Oh, that's so funny.
And it's so funny now because the roles have changed. So he's a lawyer, and now he's moved from practicing to an in-house law firm. To an in-house position for corporate. So his hours are very different from mine. Now I'm the one who's like exhausted or not there at the end of the day. Just before I entered the industry, a VP was speaking to a bunch of us and said to us, look, you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices, and a relationship is one of them. And sometimes the only thing you'll get is getting to go to bed next to your partner, and sometimes that's enough. And unfortunately, it's the truth.
But now onto the more positives.
Yes.
Actually, you're right.
Work
I feel like we
Work hours and everything else aside, I think that banking is a very, very exciting and rewarding career.
Absolutely.
So maybe we can chat a bit about what you've enjoyed the most about your job. And I'll go first. What I really wanted going into my post-grad or my employment after undergrad was I wanted something which would challenge me every day, and something where I would constantly be learning. And I feel like banking's ticked that for me, because you're literally always presented with something new, some new complexity, and just really, really exciting deals. And it feels great to, if you've been dealing with a problem, to finally find a solution to it. And you're also just really surrounded by smart, inspiring people. And I think for me, those are the things which I enjoy the most about my job.
I think I completely agree with that, especially in terms of skill set. I think, like I was saying to you earlier, I don't think I'll leave until I have
pause, I'm about to sneeze.
So I think I'm a very curious person, and I really enjoy learning. And the second, which I find a bit more, not more exciting, but equally as exciting, is access into top management across various industries. I mean, even if you're just sitting there in the meeting, right, taking notes, it's still very exciting. I think at my level, I don't get to put a lot of, and I hate to say it, I think at my level, I'm a bit of a processor rather than
strategic thinker.
And I think I lean more towards strategic thinking, but just I don't get to implement it in my job because of my level, which sucks, but it is what it is.
But you'll get there, after a few years.
Yeah, exactly. But just being in the same room as these guys and seeing how they think about their business and where they wanted to go, and seeing how bankers are able to help them. I find that very, very exciting and sexy. Not so much putting the decks together, pulling an all-nighter for that. No, but it's a very exciting industry to be in. I think in South Africa, I don't want to say it's boring, but it's not as dynamic as internationally, and I wish it could be. But it's a very exciting industry to be in, and I know a lot of people say if you want career growth and you want to expand your skill set quickly, you either go into investment banking or you go into consulting. And I mean, I'm completely aligned to that. You learn so much in a short space of time, and you actually are given a lot of responsibility, but it's also dependent on the firm that you're at. But you know, some banks just throw you into the deep end and they say swim, and you're like, I don't know how. And they're like, try, and eventually you find yourself swimming and you think, oh, okay.
For me, like, if you think about the hours that we work, 1 year of experience is equivalent to 2. So the learning curve is really steep, and you get so much exposure in banking. Like, yes, you won't necessarily be the person speaking on these calls and stuff, but you will be on calls with the C-suite of these crazy blue chip companies, and you know, like, or if not, you will be doing work directly for the C-suite. Like, not many people at, you know, 23, 24 can say that they have that level of exposure. So there's a huge, like, you know, benefit to seeing that, because then you get to see like how people's minds work, and again, like Minnie said, like how bankers help companies implement a strategy that will affect an entire workforce. I mean, that's crazy. And then you do this deal, and then it's on the newspaper, and it's crazy. Like, you were the person who was sending all the books or all the decks for that deal, you know. So that's the benefit. And then also, like, you get access to an incredible network of people, because they're also bankers or they're also consultants or whatever, and then you kind of form this network, which is also really cool and can help you on later on in life, depending on like the direction your career is going to take. You'll know somebody who knows something about something that can help you with your next step or whatever. It's also just banking, also like for future employers or future roles within the firm, depending on what direction you want to take. Like, being an analyst at a bank, the vetting process is done. Like, you know that this person can work hard. You know what this person is willing to sacrifice for a job, and that kind of answers, it ticks a lot of boxes, and people like want to hire you.
What would you say is like the most rewarding bit of the job? Because at
the 25th, I'm kidding. 25th of the month, no, I'm kidding. What is the 25th? I'm like, yes, this is why I wake up
No, but if we're honest, on payday, you're like,
this
okay,
is why.
it's fine.
I'm feeling better. You wipe away the tears. I'm feeling better.
The day before, and I don't know about you, but mine reflects usually late at night, like midnight, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, sometimes if you're working late, you'll be like, oh, thank
if you're working late, you're like, actually, I'm fine. I take back everything that I said today.
Every negative thing doesn't exist.
I'm okay. In the beginning, if somebody told me to do something, I wouldn't know where to look. I wouldn't even know where to start. But I'm seeing my progress. Like, now I know where to start. Now I know where to look. Now I know who to ask. And that like, is quite rewarding. And I now know what apps are, by the way.
And what can you say about like your personal growth on the job? Because I think that through the negatives, like all the sacrifice and whatever, there are positives, like you said, the knowledge that you gain. But I also think that like there's a personal growth journey that you go through. From your perspective, if you look at yourself before you came into your grad program compared to now,
I'll just say sometimes it's really difficult to see your own personal growth because you're so stuck in like just getting things done and just like going to bed, waking up, working, going to bed, waking up, working. So my partner actually said to me the one day, like I was having a really tough day and I was like, and I just started, but I don't know if I can do this anymore. And he said to me, but no, you've grown so much, but like look at all the things you're capable of doing now relative to when you started. So sometimes it's difficult to see that growth yourself, but it definitely is there.
Yeah, I've grown a lot just in terms of like little things like presenting yourself, like like knowing how to speak in like an internal meeting or whatever, and I've learned how to, like, the insecurity of asking too many questions or whatever, like that's completely disappeared, like, and I think that for me in the beginning it was like a bit of a pride issue as well, and like that's, you know, out of the window, otherwise you're going to get things wrong and it's an issue for everybody, right? But I've also like gotten tougher, like before, like, because I'm a crier. Most people in my life know that, like I cry like I'm an emotional person, and before, like I could cry like all the time, and now
you can't cry all the time.
And now it's like controlled crying, like you can cry and then get back to things, whereas before I would cry and wallow and then the next day I'd decide to take on life. But I've learned to, like, in the moment, like, let's just do it, let's just get on with it. So I've become really, really tough.
Just to add on that note, so what I wanted to say before was you get tougher, but in the sense of, I don't know, I think tough for women and tough for men are completely different. And lately I think I'm pretty, like, I'm a shy person naturally, and I work in an all-male team, and I'll watch the guys interacting with clients, and I mean our firm is really great at that, putting juniors in front of clients, and you can't be in front of a client saying
and just fold.
You have to be confident.
You've got to be confident, and the guys are really, and I don't know if they're faking it or not, maybe they are, but they're so confident and they speak loudly. So lately I've been thinking, and I don't want to say I'm behaving more like a man, but I'm taking some of the good characteristics that they have, and I speak more loudly. And if my MD comes and says, no, this doesn't make sense, I'll say, well, actually. But obviously knowing very well that I can back myself. And it makes such a difference because people do listen to you. And, I mean, initially when you go, I'm not too sure. And then they think you're a Popeye. And they start walking over you. And you know, sometimes walking over someone, it isn't always justified. So I feel like I've become tougher in that sense, and I don't want to say I've become more man-like, but I have taken some characteristics from the men in my team, and it's worked to my benefit so far.
It's interesting that you say that, because I've been in like male-dominated spaces forever, well, not forever, since post-retreat, and I've also learned how to just, like, if you're confident, like, people are less likely to poke holes at your story.
Absolutely.
And before, like, I found the guys in my class, before they'd start something, we'd always go in with I'm not sure if I can, but they'd go, we got this, spirit, like, got this, like, due date is, we got, you know what I mean? So just taking those positive traits from males helps. It does.
And they say this, that I think as women we want to have all our T's crossed and our I's dotted before we speak out, whereas men can, you know, just go out, speak confidently. Sometimes, and I've seen this, like amongst my analyst class, people will speak on something which they're not sure of, but they speak with so much confidence that you're like, maybe my understanding is wrong on this whole concept, you know? And so, like, once you realize that you actually know a bit more than some of these males who speak really confidently, it also, I think, encourages you to speak with more pizzazz and not be so unsure of yourself.
When I was worried about my grades when I was applying and stuff, and I was like, whatever, like, I'm not sure, like, I'm 5 or whatever % below what they want. I had a really good friend of mine, she's like in school in the States as well, and they've got like a huge Wall Street culture, like everybody wants to go to Wall Street or tech. And she was sitting with her group of friends and they were applying for jobs, and the males in her class like ticked like 2 requirements, like, look, listen, this is mine.
Just apply.
They had applied, you know, and she told me, she's like, there's people out there who are like way more mediocre than you even think you are, who are going to take these positions just because they're confident enough to walk into the room. So like, and that's when I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna apply. And it worked out. Yeah.
And just to wrap it up, if you guys could do it again,
What?
would you get into banking?
Yes. If I no. If I could go back in time, I probably would have made the same decision, which is why I don't have any regrets. Like,
even the engineering degree?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like,
Okay.
But I would have, if I could go back in time, I probably would have made the same decision. And I'm a huge believer in fate and the fact that like my story has been predetermined for me, and I knew that this is the path I was supposed to take, and we're here now.
I definitely would do it all again, even with my philosophy. Don't laugh. It's a good degree. Listen, actually, they looked at Harvard graduates and people that took the GMAT, and philosophy graduates actually scored top, just by the way. Just to tell. No, I definitely would do everything again, including the philosophy. I just wish I knew things that I know now, and maybe it's not specific to banking, but to corporate in general. Like, your colleagues are not your friends, they're your colleagues. Don't take anything personally. Just small stuff like that. Put your hand up, don't be shy, be confident. I mean, they're small things, but they go a very long way. But I think all of this, it is tough, but there's a lot of character building, and I think in the end it's going to be worth it.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you girls so much for joining me, for taking the time out to feature on this channel, and I really hope that the audience is receptive to this, enjoys this video. And if you guys do, please let us know in the comments. Please give a shout out to Minenhle and Tsholo in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next career conversation. Bye.